So I have come up with an introduction for myself for my paper that I'm happy with. And I'm going to try to start fashioning the first body paragraph. Um, my thesis statement is going to be that uh, the reason Tim O'Brien comes back to the death of Ted Lavender over and over and over again is because he's trying to come to terms with fear and death, and potentially even cowardice. And then I made sure that I had a couple of components in my thesis statement. I have what chapter I'm talking about, I have what lens I'm talking about, and I have the actual idea that I'm trying to prove or support in the body of my paper. Uh, the I have to think about an organization um, within the body of my paper, and I kind of feel like the way that my notes were laid out became chronological. So I have ideas within the chronology of the chapter that I'd like to explore, but I need to know that I'm having a chronological structure to this essay. So I'm going to start with something like in the beginning of the chapter. I'm not going to worry about spelling. All right, so I decided that I'm going to start with just kind of setting the context, and I feel like I'm going to build up to my main idea or my topic sentence that ties back into the thesis, because I didn't feel like it really worked to start this paragraph with my topic sentence. So I'm starting by building some context for what I'm going to be talking about within the whole body of the paper. Um, I want to I kind of want to use this quote, the things they carried were largely determined by necessity. And I'm trying to figure out how to work that in. And a few. I want to use the ellipses to show that I am taking out material just so that I can use the main ideas that I want to analyze within this paragraph. It is okay to do this. It is okay to not use long quotes. In fact, long quotes can actually obscure the material that you want to use in the analysis and make it harder to find. So it's important to think about what is it that you want to do with this and kind of have a plan. I want to talk about why tranquilizers and dope were a necessity for Ted Lavender. And I want to talk about how the first time that Tim O'Brien mentions him, his description of Ted Lavender is Ted Lavender who was scared. That's the first thing you know about Ted Lavender, that he was scared. And I feel like that's really an important detail that is included. Jimmy Cross pretends. That's the first thing we know about Jimmy Cross. But Ted Lavender is scared. From my plan, I know that I want to talk about the layering of each time O'Brien, the narrator, mentions Ted Lavender. And it would be tempting at this point to just kind of go into an analysis, but I need to keep my plan in mind. I need to know that I have other pieces of evidence that I want to use. I want to talk about the next time he talks about Ted Lavender, he talks about how they used his poncho to wrap him up, and then the next time he talks about him, they talk about how much ammunition he had. And so I need to make sure that I'm leaving room for that by not getting too tied into looking at only this piece of evidence. But I do want to look at it for a moment. So I am going to make that comparison. When O'Brien first mentions Lavender, the only thing he says about him, the only description he gives is that he was scared and he was shot. O'Brien does this twice. And I want to make sure that I say O'Brien here because I don't want to be unclear about who I'm talking about. O'Brien writes twice that Lavender was shot. As he lists the drugs that Lavender carried to deal with his fear. The next time Lavender is mentioned, and I'm going to go back through, I think, and look for words to replace mentioned with on a second revision of this paper, but I can't worry about that right now. I need to just get my ideas down. The next time that Lavender is mentioned, we find out that whoops. We find out that they used his poncho to take him away. And the layering of information continues as O'Brien develops the chapter. So on page 4 he's introduced. On page 5 they talk about the O'Brien talks about the poncho. On page 7 he talks about how he was carrying a lot of ammunition. on page 7, we hear and I can take out the parenthetical citation at the end because I've already given it before the actual quote. So I'm going to do that. I've already done some analysis here in my pre-writing because I had this thought and I wanted to record it. So I'm going to move that up. And I know that this is not complete analysis. I know that I need to do more with this. And this really is my topic sentence. And it's not the first sentence and it's not going to be the last sentence, but my topic sentence is O'Brien circles the topic of Ted Lavender, at first mentioning lavender and then moving on but coming back to it. It seems like he's trying to find a way into the story and he's just not sure where to begin. There's a possibility he could be doing it on purpose, but even if he is, and there's a strong possibility because he's a writer, even if he is, there appears to be a hesitancy to jump right into the topic of Lavender's death. When O'Brien, and I'm going to go back to my context, opens the chapter, the first description he chooses to give of a fellow soldier is that Cross pretends regularly to be in a relationship that he knows he's not in. The first mention of lavender tells us he's scared. It seems like O'Brien is describing these men with what he feels to be their most important characteristics. Especially in the time, especially within a war zone. Cross is a pretender, and Lavender is scared. To some extent, this was true of all of the soldiers. And I need to remember I'm doing the psychological lens here too. And O'Brien may be using these two men to represent characteristics that are present in them all. As a way of trying to understand these feelings. And I'm not done yet, but I think I have a really good start. My analysis is this long right now, and that's it. My analysis should be over half of the paragraph. So my topic sentence really is right here, and the analysis that I've generated is now complete.